Hello guys, welcome to my channel. So today we are going to work on a Java project, and this project is just specifically for beginners. So if you are new to Java, then this video is for you. So in this video we are going to work on a project called mail ID generator, and in this project we are going to see how can we generate a mail ID which is going to be unique and we cannot repeat the same email address. And this is going to be somewhat similar to what we see in our corporate email address as well. So whenever we join a new organization, that organization creates a new email address for us based on few parameters. So we are not going to work on a full-fledged functionality, rather something to start with, right? So enough talk, now let's see what we have to do to create this project. But before we do that, if you are new to my channel, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do. Now let's work on the code. Alright, first thing first is going to be your IDE. You can choose whatever you like. I'm going to work with Eclipse. So we just need to create a Maven project. So we will go to new project and here we will just type Maven. Now I'll choose create a simple project and click next. Now a few details here. Alright, so this is it what we have to provide, and then we can just hit finish. That's it. Now in terms of dependencies, like why I chose Maven, I need to provide some dependencies. So I'm going to use two basically. So one is going to be the database connection, or you can say database MySQL connector. So I'm using MySQL database, so I need a connector to connect with my database. So for that I need a dependency, and to work with database I'm going to use Hibernate here. So these two dependencies. Now I'm working with these versions right now because these were the non-issue versions available in Maven, and these are the latest one. But if you have any latest version available for you when you are working on this project, remember that this functionality will work fine with this version, but it is not guaranteed that the same code or same logic will work in the newer versions as well. So you might have to do few modifications here and there, and if not, then just Google it, right? So yeah, we are done with the dependencies. Save it, it will download the dependencies for us, and here you can see that it has. Now let's work on the classes. Alright, so now first thing is going to be that we have to create a main class. So let's do that. So main will have a public static main method as well. Alright, so now we have a main method. Now what do we need? So this main method is going to do few things. First is that it has to get the details of the employee. So I'll just say details of the employee. Then the program will generate a proposed email ID. If this email ID exists, in that case we will prompt user to provide another one. But if it doesn't, just save the email ID. Now if the email address is the existing one and we are prompting the user for an unique ID, now here we can have a few misses. So let's say if the email address available is john.doe@email.com. now if I provide the same name, the same address, then this is going to break and this will prompt the user to provide a unique ID. Now let's say if the user provided the email address like this, but let's say if this email address is also existing, then in that case we need to again prompt the user to provide a unique ID. So now this is going to be in a loop till the user provides us with an email address which is not an existing one, right? So here we need a for loop. Now this is it what we need to do. This is pretty much the gist, and afterwards when we are done with the generation part of the email address, we need to save it, and then we will just provide the. Now let's start with the details of the employee. So I'll use scanner here. Now let's import this. Now what do we need from the employees? So we need first name, last name, and yeah, that's it. So let's go with that. So sys out, enter first name of the employee, and let's get this into a variable string first name equals to sc dot next, and I'm going to copy this for the last name. So this is going to be last name. Alright, now we are good with the details. Now I need to generate a proposed email address, right? So that is going to be proposed email ID. So this is going to be first name plus last name plus at, and let's say your company name is xyz.com, right? Now we usually have john.doe, something like that, right? So we need a dot here or a period, so I'll just do here like this, and yeah, we are good. Now let's say if in this case the user is prompting us first name like this, John, and the second last name is going to be like this, Doe. So here if you see we have capital D, capital J. So I don't want this in the email ID. So with that, what we can do is we can just do first name dot to lowercase and last name dot to lowercase. That's it. So he can also do like this. So I don't want that, right? So I'll just keep that in mind that this can happen. So let's lowercase this. Now we are done with the email ID generation. What do we need? We need to find out if this email address is existing in the database or not. So now let's connect to the database. So like I said, we are going to use Hibernate here. So I'll just create a utility class for this. Alright, so now with Hibernate we have two things basically. We have a session and we have a configuration, right? So with configuration we provide what type of database we are using, user ID, password, and stuff like your like if you need DDL or not, stuff like that. Like, so everything related to configuration you provide with that. With session you basically do a session factory which creates your session where you can open, close that session to manage multiple sessions, right? So this is pretty much the gist. It's not much detailed, but yeah, we can go with that. So like I said, we need session factory. So let's first create a session factory object. So we are going to use Hibernate one. Alright, so now we need a get session factory object method, right? So static session factory get session factory, So this is going to be something similar to your singleton design pattern. So if this object is equals to null, in that case only create an object, otherwise just return it. So we are ensuring here that we are having only one and just one object of session factory, right? So if now why do we do this? So if we create multiple session factory objects, then we can create multiple sessions, and this can jumble up our application. So keep that in mind. You should always have one session factory object per application, but you can have multiple sessions created within your application, but you have to close it, right? Now if it is null, then we will create the object, otherwise we will just return session factory. Good. Okay, now I need a configuration object here. So configuration is this one. All right, now we need few properties to set. So what do we need? So first is that we need a driver. So I'll provide the value later on. So let's first set these. So first we need a driver, then we need URL, then username, and password, and lastly we need Hibernate HBM to DDL auto. Yep. So for driver we need to provide this. This is going to be constant for every MySQL connection. All right, now for URL you need to go with your server details. So where you have the database installed, you need to start with this first. This stands for that you are going with JDBC connection for MySQL database, and then your server address, hostname basically. So I'm not using any server, so this is going to be localhost. Then on which port it is installed. So for Windows this is by default 3306, and then the database name. So I'll just do email generator. So username for me is root, password is root, and for this I'll start with create. And yeah, now set these values in service registry, where we will just register the service. Standard service registry builder. Yep, this one. Dot apply settings. So here we will provide our configuration dot get properties, and then just build this. Okay, so I missed one thing. I didn't set all these properties to our configuration. So for that simply we will do configuration dot set properties and then properties. We need to create a session object, session factory object from configuration dot build session factory and session registry. Alright, so this is it. Now we need to create our model class. So that is going to be our employee class. So let's create that quickly. Okay, so this is going to be model employee. Now we need to annotate this with table and then your table name. So you can choose any name here and entity. Now you need to provide your columns. So I have ID, first name, and then last name. That's it. Oh, lastly we need email, the proposed email ID. Let's just do email. Alright, so this ID is going to be auto generated. So ID generated value strategy is going to be your identity, and here we will just do column. These are the columns but with a different name, otherwise it will generate something like this, your variable name. And same could have happened for this one, but as you can see we have the same name, so we don't need this basically, but I did that just to provide more information. Column name equals to first underscore name. Let's copy this, paste it here, and this one is going to be your last name. And for email I don't need to change the name, so this is just going to be column. Now we need getters and setters and constructor. So let's first create a default constructor. Now let's create the parameterized constructor. Alright, then setters and getters. Okay, that's it. We are done with our model class. I need to check in the database whether this ID which we are proposing is existing or not, right? So first we need to create the tables and then we can proceed. So let's open MySQL quickly. Alright, so first let's create the schema. So our schema name is email generator. Okay, so let's click apply. That's it. Now let's create table. Okay, so now let's create the table. So employee column names. Okay, so first is your ID. This is going to be primary key and obviously not null. Then first name, not null. Then last name, not null. Then email, and then apply. So this is the DDL for us. Click on apply and finish. And here you can see the table with the columns. Okay, so we are good. Now let's work on our main logic. So like I said, we need to figure out if this email ID is existing or not. So for that, I'll just create a DAO layer, employee DAO and DAO. So this is just going to have two methods. One is going to be your save employee. Another one is going to get employees. Okay, so let's first work on the get employees. So this is going to return list of employee. And for this we need to get the session. So I'll just use try for auto resource allocation. So session, okay, let's import this session. Okay, Hibernate util dot, okay. Oh, okay. So let's see if I made this static. Okay, this is static. Okay, but what went wrong? Oh, okay. So yeah, my bad. Public. Open session, and then I'll just return session dot create query. So here I'm just going to use HQL, Hibernate query language, from employee, and then employee dot class dot list, and that's it. Okay, so we are done with the get employees method, and this is going to be public. Then your save employee, which is going to be void. Okay, now let's work on save employee. So here again we need to open a session. So let's copy this line. And here we need to provide an object to save, right? So here in the arguments we will get an employee object, and same we will provide here. Now we need to commit this. So for commit we need a transaction. Okay, I imported the wrong one. So this is going to be null by default, and here we will create an object, begin transaction, and transaction dot commit. Okay, that's it. So if let's say something went wrong, in that case we will have an exception. So I'll just catch that exception here, and if transaction is not equals to null, that means we have began the transaction. In that case we will just roll back the changes, so it won't commit the changes and we won't see anything wrong in the database. And we can also print the stack trace. Okay, so we are done with our employee DAO. Let's come back to main.java. Now here I'll just create the employee DAO object Usually we auto wire this, but I don't want to make this complex, so keeping it simple. Employee DAO equals to new employee DAO. Okay, now to see if this email is existing one or not, I can create a new method as well, right? Just to see if this is existing or not. But just to keep it simple, I'll just first call the get employees method, store it into a variable, and then let's use the Java 8 functionality here. So emplace.stream dot filter. So we need to check if email is equals to this employee list email or not, right? So email dot equals e dot get email. Now if this happens means if it is able to find any, then just return that object, or else return null. Right now, okay, what went wrong here? Okay, sorry, p email id. So let's store this into an object. Now how do we know if the email is there in the database or not? So I'll just have a if condition. If this object is null, then I know for sure that this ID is not existing in the database, because we did a check here, right? So this pretty much says that for each employee in this list, check if the email of this employee from this list is equals to this email ID or not. So it will check for every employee. So if it is null, then we can say that this is not an existing email address, so just store it, right? So in that case, I'll just save this employee. Now to save the employee, I need to have an employee object. So let's create that object. Now I had the parameterized constructor here, so I don't need to provide the ID. I just need to provide first name, last name, and email address. Oops. Alright, now I need to change this employee object. So I think I have ID here as well. I don't need this. This is going to be auto generated. Alright, so we have the employee object. Now let's just call the employee DAO save employee and then employee, and then we will just print email generated. Now let's come down to the else part. If the email ID is existing one, then first we will prompt that this ID is existing. So I'll just say default email exist, and then I'll just say provide an unique email ID. Now I need a while loop. So first get the email ID, so sc dot next, and then to lowercase Okay, so this is a compilation error. Okay, so this needs to be final. Okay, no problem. So let's just say final, and here I'll just use a different email. Okay, now I need a while loop here. So this while loop is going to be infinite, and I'll break this. Now this email that we have prompted for the user, that we have asked from the user, so if this email is existing or not existing, in that case we are going to break the while loop, right? So now again I need to figure out if this employee is existing one or not. So I can use this logic. So I'll just do this, and I don't need this. Now if this is null, then I can say that this email ID, this one, is new. Otherwise I need an else condition where I'll just continue with the loop, right? So if amp equals null, then I'll just save this object. So let's copy this. Here instead of proposed email ID, I'll just say email. Alright, so here also email, and then I'll just break the loop. Otherwise the loop is going to continue asking for the email address again. Alright, so this is the code. Now here still it is going to be final, or we can do one thing. This code is being repetitive, so I'll just create a method private. This is going to return employee, check email exist, and I'll just copy this and add a return here. And this needs an employee list object, so list employee and emp list, and then also it will need an email object. Alright, so here I'm just going to call this like this. Okay, it is not static. 1 minute. Check email exist, employee list, and yeah, email. So good. So we don't need to create the object again. Now here also I can make a change. So this is going to be, instead of p email ID. Yep, that's good. Alright, so I think we are done with the code. Now we have to close this scanner. So sc.close. Alright, so let's run this code. Okay, enter first name, let's say John Doe, and I got an exception. Okay, illegal argument exception, could not resolve root identity employee. Alright, so what I have done is I have dropped the table from email generator. What I will do is I'll try to generate this from Hibernate. Now let's run this. So something is wrong with the code, not sure what. Okay, though I'm getting the same error, but let's see if it has generated the table. Okay, so this is something wrong. So Hibernate is not able to generate the table, as well as it is not able to see if the table is there or not. Okay, so my bad. Previously I was just creating the query like from employee, but it doesn't checks for the database table name. It checks for the class name, which is our capital E employee. Now I need to give Hibernate the details like use this annotated class, right? So now let's see if it is going to work or not. So again, I am expecting that this is going to create a table for us. That is a must. Okay, so it worked and John Doe at XYZ generated. Now let's go to SQL, refresh. Okay, I can see this and I can see John Doe, right? Now let's update this. Now let's update this to update, because I don't want to create this every time, otherwise it is going to rewrite the database. Now let's run this again and I'm going to provide the same details, John and Doe. So it said default email exists, provide a unique email ID. So let's say if I just provide the same email ID as the previous one, I just want to check if the endless infinite while loop is working or not. So again it said same. Okay, good. Now I'll just say john.doe1 at xyz.com. Okay, so it said the same ID is generated. Now let's see in the table. Okay, so I can see that and this is working fine. So this is it I want to showcase in this video. Now what we can do to further enhance this project. First of all, we can add more parameters to decide if this is the same person as the previous one for which the email address is matching, right? We can have a department, we can have a gender, something like that. We can add more parameters. So this is going to add few more parameters here in your model class, and then based on that you can decide better. Now secondly, you can do a GUI application as well, where you can have buttons click, where you don't have to play with console. That is additional thing that you can do, but this is going to be something bigger. Or you can try for web UI front-end based page, right? So there you can have fields where you can submit the form, check the form if it is existing or not. So just to keep it simple, I didn't do that. And if you have any questions related to this code, do let me know in the comment section. And I hope that we will meet in some another video. Till then, have a good day, stay happy, and bye bye.